Hi everyone and welcome to another video. Today we're gonna be painting a Threadfin Shad and we're starting right now. Alright everyone, I already went ahead and I painted my lure white and then I went over it with a pearl white base coat so that we get a nice shimmer and sheen underneath all the paints we're gonna layer. And that pearl white is going to shine through our washes later when we put on a clear coat. So the first wash I'm applying is a Vallejo Model Wash Black, and that's to create our darker tones on the back already. We're gonna layer a few colors over that, so it's gonna appear darker, but it's not gonna be totally black anymore. We're gonna cover that later. And then I'm gonna dip with a paper towel to suck up all the wash that didn't dry, to create a little bit more texture and make it look very realistic. Next up, I am already outlining the details with a little bit of a brown wash, and that is because if we would use a black it's gonna stick out too much, but a brown is gonna blend in later when we're going to use other paints on top of that. It's gonna give a little bit of depth and a natural feel to all the details that's in the head. Also, this swim bait has a really nice tiny scale texture on the body, so I'm gonna use a brown wash here to make that scale texture stick out just a little bit more. And I'm also gonna use my paper towel to dip away the excess paint and to create a little bit more of a nice pattern on there. Also, by dipping with a paper towel you're going to create more soft edges in your paintings and it's gonna look more natural. I want the back to be a little bit darker, so I'm using a brown wash there and I'm just gonna let this dry. I'm not gonna dip this one off. I'm just gonna let the paint sit and dry, so it becomes a little darker there. Now some Threadfin Shads have a little bit of a greenish hint on the back, so that's why I'm using a dark green wash right now, just to create that little bit of a greenish color on the back. Next I'm gonna spray a little bit of Createx Quick Silver on there, and that's to create that nice and silvery sheen. Also, that's gonna push back all those washes we did a little bit more in the background and make it more subtle. The first color shift I'm gonna use is a Vallejo Red to Gold, and straight from the bottle it actually looks pink, and that means if you would spray that on a white background, or a little bit silvery in this case, it is gonna turn out a little bit pinkish, because if you look at a reference picture then you can see that there is a little bit of a purple, violet, maybe even light pinkish color going on sometimes. It's a kind of a little bit of a color shift that's on those scales. So by recreating that I am using this color shift to give it a little bit more color on the body. And of course a lot of Threadfin Shads have this bluish kind of interference on their scales. That means that when the light hits it or from the right angle it turns a little bit blue instead of white. So that's why I'm using a little bit of Createx Pearl Bright Blue, and I'm just slightly dusting that on there on the body to create that little bit of a blue sheen on those scales. I felt like the back could be a little bit more yellowish, stick out a little bit more and be a little bit more bright. So I am using Vallejo Sun Yellow for this, and I'm creating that nice yellowish back that some Threadfin Shads had. This might be a little bit brighter than usually, but it's gonna stick out really nice in the water when you fish this lure in a school of Threadfin Shads. To create that metallic yellowish effect that a Threadfin Shad has on the back, I am gonna use a Vallejo color shift called Golden Yellow to Burnt Orange. It's a nice color shift that's gonna stick out a little bit and make that yellow a little bit more metallic again. If I look clearly to my reference picture then I can see that there are a little bit of black accents and there's this little black speckle going on the end of the gill plate. So I'm using a little bit of a black wash to create a little bit more of a darker back and create that nice little black detail on the gill plate. Also, I want to darken that yellow a little bit and create a little bit more texture in there. So I'm carefully stippling with a paper towel that has a little bit of black wash on there, and I'm stippling onto that yellow to create a little bit more texture and to create a little bit more of the feel that there are some scales underneath there. It's gonna tone down that yellow a little bit. It's gonna push it back a little bit. And now I'm using a little bit of Wicked Detail Moss Green, which is a really nice and natural green. And I'm using this to darken that back a little bit more, make it more green. And that's gonna bind those colors a little bit more together. Next up, I'm gonna use my favorite color shift from Vallejo, which is Electric Blue to Bright Violet, which is a really nice and bright color shift that can be used on any kind of dark surface, even on a dark green or a dark brown. That color shift is gonna show through very well. You can also use it on white and it's gonna turn a little bit bluish, like an interference color, which is also really nice. But in this case I'm gonna use the paint to create a nice color shift on the back, and we're slightly dusting this color on there, creating a nice layer but not too thick, so that there's still a little bit of the texture that we laid on there shining through underneath that color shift. For the fins I am simply just using a brown wash, and I felt like that was enough to make them stick out a little bit of the body but still look natural. Of course, a shad without a shad dot would not be a shad, so I am using Wicked Detail Black Magenta, which is a really nice and transparent black. And I'm gonna use that paint to paint the shad dot on there. And I'm not using a stencil for this dot because I don't want any sharp edges, because if you look at this reference picture, then you can see that the dot fades a little bit out and has a little bit more of a softer edge. Also with that same black magenta, I'm going to shade those gill plates a little bit to give them a little bit more depth and give a little bit more of a 3D feeling to them. And I'm using a stencil to cover the rest of the body so that I don't get any overspray, and I only shoot paint on the gill plates. Now it's time to put the eyes in. I'm using these realistic 3D glass eyes from Lure Blanks, which really make the shad pop. And now we're ready for a clear coat. Alright guys, our lure is finished, and as you can see there are a lot of color shifts going on in this lure. The belly has that nice blue to white sheen, and that pink changes to a gold, but in a really subtle way, so that's really cool actually. I have to say, from a little further away it looks a little bit more natural, because then the colors don't really pop as much as they do from close by. So yeah, it's a very pretty lure. It's a very nice fish. Really like the colors though. Those Vallejo color shifts are really great, very easy to use, and they shift very well. As always guys, I will leave a link in the description below for all the materials that I used to paint this lure. This will guide you to my webshop, which is based in Sweden, and if you would buy anything there you will be supporting me and the channel. If you got any questions or suggestions, leave them in the comments down below. And as always, thank you for watching, have a nice day and see you next time. Bye bye!